I am Robert Strong, and welcome to Comedy Talks.
Conversations with the legends of comedy. At each show, I talk with 3 comedy legends about their careers, personal lives, and tips of the comedy trade. On this episode, we talk with award-winning star of stage and screen, Carol Channing, the Dean of Impersonators, Rich Little, and prolific comedian, singer, and actor, Steve Rossi. In this new unscripted humor series, you meet the writers, producers, directors, actors, and comedians responsible for some of the biggest laughs of your life.
Now, Rich and Carol, you guys are old friends, yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
I adore this lady. I really do.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. You've been adored a lot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Everybody loves Carol.
Oh, and everybody, isn't that strange? We never think so, do we?
No.
I mean, I always think, oh, they hate me, you know.
Oh,
no,
Carol.
not they hate me.
Do you think that's why you're so successful, is that you're always working hard to win the audience over?
Well, Helen Hayes told me stage fright is God-given. That's what she said. I'm dropping a name now. I knew Helen Hayes, and she was the first lady of the theater, and she said it's God-given. I mean, Noah Coward threw up before every show he did. Very suave and sophisticated and all that. But he couldn't go on the... And you know, for over a span of 30 years, I never missed a performance.
I know, that's
and
amazing.
Every doggone show, I was as sick as a dog. What's the matter with us?
Well, I've never had that problem. I don't know.
Now, you, Rich and Steve are close friends also, yes?
Yes, we are.
How'd you guys
Yes.
meet? Do you remember?
Gee, I don't
I used
know.
to do his laundry, and no, we met many years ago, and became friends then. And then in the last 10 years, we became the best of friends because, well, he's so lovable and he's such a great talent. You know, he's just
Thank you.
can't beat it.
Steve's got a great sense of humor. I mean, a little strange at times, but a terrific sense. And so does Carol, too. And let me tell you, anybody who doesn't have a sense of humor, forget about it. Maybe that's why I don't like Barack Obama.
Speaking of Barack Obama, is there any presidents that have been better for you or worse?
Well, I got to tell you, my favorite president of all time, and one of my favorite people that I've ever met in my life, and Carol is certainly one of them, but that was Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely adored Ronald Reagan. And the interesting thing about Ronald Reagan was he had a great sense of humor. He had a fabulous
do you have a great
sense
Ronald
of
Reagan story?
Oh my gosh, I've got so many Ronald Reagan stories. First time I ever performed at the White House, it was a luncheon, and I was late. I couldn't believe it. I got hung up in traffic, and I'm going to the White House, and I'm late. And I'm running down the corridor like an idiot, and I see Reagan out in front of the Lincoln Room talking to the press. It was the time of Grenada, right? The invasion. And he's talking to the press, very serious conversations. And I come running down there, and Reagan says, "Rich, thank God you're here. You do me better than I do. You take over here. I'm going..." "You take over here, I'm going for a sandwich. And all I ask is that when I'm gone is you don't get us into a war." So I'm standing there like this, and the press are asking me questions like Reagan's still there. And they're asking, "Mr. President." Yes, what is it? What do you think of Grenada?" "I think it's the finest song that Buddy Greco has ever recorded." And that was,
That's wonderful.
and let me tell you,
Can I tell?
as I'm doing this stuff, I'm doing Reagan, and all the press are asking these questions. Reagan's like peeking through the door, going like this. I mean, it was just...
Now, you guys just did a little bit, and you play the straight man. And speaking of a great straight man, George Burns, you had the opportunity to work with him.
Yes, I
How
did.
did that opportunity come about?
Because Gracie chose me. That's the honor of my life. She chose me to work with her, George. She was sick, and she was dying and didn't know it. And Gracie said, "I'd like you to work with Carol." And I That was the honor. And the least of George's talents was performing, wasn't it? That was the least of his talents. He was a brilliant man. He was the Florence Ziegfeld, the David Merrick of his era. He really was. He planned the orchestrations, the music, the lights, everything. Get Gracie's costume, the house they lived in, all. He did everything.
How was it to work with him?
Fantastic. He gave me a thing, lines to do, like, well, you see, I wear eyelashes here, and then I put eyeshadow here, and then I put eyebrow pencil here, and then I put on more lipstick here, and that way I get that natural look. And you weren't supposed to laugh yet. No, you weren't supposed to laugh because George said, "How's the joke going? You know, how's your?" So, and I said, "Well, I say it." And he said, "Say it for me." I said, "That way I get that natural look." He said, No. That way I get that natural look. He said, "The balcony should cave in." So I went back and said, "That way I get that natural look." And the balcony caved in. It was amazing what he could do. He was a genius.
The little George. Yeah, little George Burns. How are ya? Listen, Gracie wanted to be here tonight, but she couldn't make it. She had to go to Punta Gorda, Florida. They asked her to be Grand Marshal in a parade there, so she went there. I got a call from her about 10 minutes ago backstage. I said, "Gracie, how was the parade?" She said, "George, it was wonderful. Everybody showed up, and they were very nice, and big crowd, and lots of excitement. The only thing was, they wondered why I wore a fox hat." I said, "Gracie, wait a minute. You wore a fox hat in a parade?" She said, "Of course I did. You told me to." I said, "What do you mean I told you to?" She said, "Silly, don't you remember? Last Saturday, we were sitting around the breakfast table in Beverly Hills, and I said, listen, I'm going up to San Francisco, to do a little show with Carol Channing and Steve Rossi. How would you like to come?" She said, "George, I can't. I've got to go to Punta Gorda." I said, "Where?" She said, "Punta Gorda." I said, "Punta Gorda? Wear the fox hat." And I did.
You made that up. He made a Gracie wouldn't let him say anything like that.
What's wrong with fox hat?
We'll be right back. And now let's take a look at a few photos. So let me tell you what's behind you, Carol Channing.
That looks like a typical afternoon here in San Francisco.
What it is a picture of you, Carol Channing, with Lucille Ball and
Oh,
Betty
my God.
White.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, there's Betty White. Oh, isn't that? Oh, that's nice.
So the question is did you work with Lucille Ball and Betty White, and how was that?
Yes, I did, and I was. Lucille Ball was wonderful. She wanted. Oh gosh, she was funny. But you know, I never get imitated by any girls, and it amazed me that I mean.
But you were imitated by men.
Yeah, but do I have a glandular imbalance of some kind? I don't know what the problem
I think
is.
the men in San Francisco love you.
Yeah, oh, sure, they don't care whether I'm a girl or a boy.
And I read that Johnny Depp may play you in a movie.
Isn't that an honor?
And a bio movie about you.
Yes, that is an honor. That really is. But
He's a little too old for that
And
part.
do you think he'll get rid of his goatee when he does it?
I am sure. Let's do the next
Lucy,
slide.
I gotta. You know, let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol. Let's go back. Let's go back.
Oh, Lucy did me.
Lucy did?
I thought a pretty woman did me. Oh, gee, it was on one of. No, you remember that show?
A Pretty Women Did Me.
So, so Lucy did me on one of her shows, and you remember there's somebody there that did. And at the end of the show, the officer arrests her, and she was doing, I don't know what, but she did some darn person I never saw. But anyway, so she did it, and she said, "But officer," he said, "I have to take you in for disturbing the peace." She said, "Well, I didn't mean any harm." And he said, "Harm? Look what you just did to Carol Channing." Isn't that an honor? That's an honor.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Lucille Ball.
He was one of the greats.
Oh, to be one of.
One of the greats.
Let's go to the next slide.
My gosh, he's only about 14 there.
You know, Marty and I were the last headliners at the Sands Hotel, and I'll never forget, we were very upset when they imploded the Sands because we were on stage at the time. And I remember the first time we worked at the Sands, I took a picture of the marquee. They had Polaroid cameras then. I guess they have them again now. So I took the picture. It was very windy, and the sign said, "The Sands presents Allen and Rossi." Well, when I looked at the picture, because it was windy, the P had fallen off, and it said, "The Sands resents Allen and Rossi." And they left it there for our whole engagement. And we never did better business.
Let's do the next slide.
Oh, look at that.
On Life.
Oh.
Wow.
That's me.
Cover of Life.
Magazine.
Carol Channing, that was a great honor to be on the cover of Life.
Yes. I was on Look, Pick, Click, and Cluck at the time. Oh.
And that is a great image, too.
Oh, yeah, that's the cash register. Yeah.
That's the cash register, yes.
What's that from? What's
Hello, Dolly.
Oh, that's from Hello, Dolly. Good.
Yes.
How many performances did you do of Hello, Dolly? Do you know?
Yul Brynner used to, we were neck and neck. He was doing The King and I and Hello, Dolly at the same time. And we just kept doing them. And then we went on the road at the same time, and we'd meet in airports. So Yul said, "Look, I'm facing my 5,000th performance. And if you ever go over 5,000 performances, don't tell anyone, will you?" And I said, "Oh, we're friends. I wouldn't do that to you. No, I'll be very quiet." Well, the poor man is dead now, so I can tell you we went way overboard. And then Yul took me to the doctor because I had no voice. And Yul opened the doors and took me by the hand. And he said, "No autographs, please." So, but nobody asked for one. I don't know why he had to do that. And he did it wherever we went. No autographs. And they put down their newspapers and they thought, "Who's she?" You know.
That is great. And we got a couple more slides before we go to intermission.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
This is a great photo. We've got Rich Little in the middle.
Steve Allen.
And Jack Benny.
And Jack Benny. What a great photo.
Oh.
Do you remember working with him that day?
Oh boy, he was one of my idols, Jack Benny. He was such a sweet man. I mean, he was nothing like his image. He was very generous.
Yes.
He really was in real life. I remember seeing him like at 4 o'clock in the morning at the Sands Hotel. I'd be coming in after going to one of the lounge shows and then going to breakfast. And I'd come into the Sands about 3 or 4 in the morning, and there was Jack, playing the nickel machine. And he's just standing there. And I'd come over and I said, "Jack, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm playing the nickel machine. I'm going to keep playing it until my string breaks."
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
He used to love it when I imitated him. Oh, he used to get the biggest. His favorite, it's so funny, but he used to say to me, "Rich, you do all these people. You imitate Ed Sullivan, John Wayne, George Burns. But my favorite was Spiro Agnew." I said, "Spiro Agnew?" He loved it. He used to say to me, like on the Carson show, "Do your Spiro Agnew." And I thought, this is not one of my great impressions, Spiro Agnew, one-time vice president. But I remember I used to do it for him, and darn it, I guess nobody would remember Spiro Agnew, but let me think.
Oh, sure we will.
Let me think, Spiro Agnew. Let me give you a little background on myself and clarify the discrepancies promulgated by those who close their eyes to the pernicious influence of the spirit of national masochism encouraged by an effete corps of impudent snobs. And then Jack would say, isn't that great? What the hell does it mean? Or would you repeat that? I mean, he really, I love George Burns and Jack Benny, and it's interesting because my father, bless his soul, he didn't live to see me get into show business really, but he loved George Burns and Jack Benny. If he could have seen me with them, he just, oh my gosh, I think about that while he's up there looking down.
I'm sure he's proud.
Sees you. Yeah.
We're back with Carol Channing, Rich Little, and Steve Rossi. Steve Rossi, you have a hit single called More.
Well, it was.
Well, it was
It was a hit single called More.
53 years ago.
And we have some musicians here. Would you play a little bit? Would you sing a little bit of that song for us?
Well,
You
if
guys
they
help?
want me to, I'll do
53 years.
It just made the chart.
Yeah, this was my biggest hit record on Columbia Records through the years. You can vamp on this. Oh, he's fixing the piano. Anyhow, it was my biggest hit record, and through the years I was lucky enough to sell over 3 million copies. It was nominated for the Academy Award, and I sang it at the Academy Awards in 1972. I couldn't believe that audience. Thank you. When I sang the ending of the song, the entire audience stood up and cheered, and it was the greatest moment of my career. And you know something, folks? I never thought it would ever happen again. Until today, ladies and gentlemen, because you people are twice as good as that crappy audience at the Academy Awards. So you can imagine how excited I am knowing the kind of ovation you're going to give me. And if I should get one, I'm going to come out in the audience and kiss each and every one of you ladies out there. You really don't give a damn, do you? If I don't, I'm going to kiss these two guys right over here. Here's my hit song. Hope you remember it. More than the greatest love in all the land. This was my only big hit song. Can't you give me a hand? More than the simple words I try to say. I only live to love you more each day, more than you'll ever know. My arms long to hold you so. My life will be in your keeping, waking, sleeping, laughing, weeping. Longer than always is a long, long time, but far beyond forever, I want you to be mine. I know I never lived before, and my heart is very sure no one else could love you more. No one else could love you more. No one else can love you more. Thank you, San Francisco. Thank you.
Now,
Can I have one more chance?
now we're on the topic of music. Rich Little, I hate to put you on the spot, but you do a great Carol Channing impression, and I've got a request. Could you do Hello, Dolly?
Oh, do you do that?
Do it, Rick.
Gee, I never heard this. Oh. I never heard it.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm just thrilled to be here this evening. I'd like to sing a song that I think has potential. Maestro? Hello, Jolly. Well, hello, Jolly. It's so nice to have you back where you belong.
You're looking swell, Dolly. I can tell. Oh, Dolly, you're still growing, you're still growing, you're still going strong.
I hear the room swing while the band is playing one of your old favorite songs from way back when. So here's my hat, fellas. I'm staying where I'm at, fellas. Dolly'll never go away again.
Dolly will never go away again. Zaffa, 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 so fast.
You know, oh, Rich, isn't that funny? He sounded just like my father. I mean, he over-enunciates, you know. And you walk like my father. What's the matter with your knees?
I sounded like your father.
Yes.
well, then get up and clean your room.
And you look like my
Well,
father.
thank you, Carol.
Yes.
That's very sweet of you to say that.
Do I do that?
I don't.
I never
for
said
heaven's
sweet
sake,
of you.
I don't sound like that at all. That's ridiculous.
Now, Rich, you do a lot of impersonations, and you do it in front of the people that you're doing.
Yes.
And what is that like, and how do they react?
It varies, you know. I mean, sometimes the person you do are the last to know that that's them.
That's right.
You know, I've done impressions for people, and they go, "No, it doesn't sound like me." And the wife's going, "Oh, that's perfect.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
into a T," you know. And sometimes they don't quite hear it, you know, the way that I do. But
Right.
it's a great compliment to get a reaction from somebody, you know, that you're doing and looking right at them. I mean,
It's an honor to be done by
I
you,
tell
you
ya.
fool. It is.
Now, you guys in your career have done thousands, tens of thousands of shows, and are you always looking for that perfect show, or do you know it when you hit it?
Yeah, it's tonight.
Oh, that was good.
Now, Carol, do you, when you're performing and you hit a perfect night, do you know that's perfect, or are you always still kind of honing and fixing and tweaking?
No, I don't. We don't change the show. But I noticed that when I'm so sick, I can't. I had ovarian cancer for a while in Dolly. And if you think I can't do it, that's your best show. It always is. Isn't that the strangest thing? When you're so sick you can't stand up, or you can't speak or anything, you reach to the heavens to get the show out at all. And that's the heavens hear you. I don't know, does heavens answer you or something, some reason. And that's how I got the Tony Award. They were all sitting there on a show, and I thought, I can't do it. The doctor standing in the wings and everything else. And what is that? There was a girl in Chicago. I was doing Wonderful Town. And a little, well, anyway, she missed a show. So I said, well, you missed your show yesterday. And she said, but I was sick. And I said, but you just missed your own very best performance.
Yeah.
She did. Yeah.
Now, in the craft of theater, comedy, and probably all arts, there's these happy little mistakes. And those happy little accidents turn into something really wonderful. Can you think of anything that developed in your shows or in your careers that were accidents at first, but later became one of your strongest moments?
Yeah, I remember on the Ed Sullivan show, I asked... Here we go. Oh, I got to tell you this story. After each show, Ed would come to the dressing rooms, knock on the door, and congratulate you if you did a good show. And on this particular show, Barbra Streisand was on and Robert Goulet, God rest his soul. So he knocks on Streisand. It was her first time on the show. Well, I want to tell you, Barbara, you were terrific on the show. Thank you, Ed. Then he knocked on Goulet's dressing room. And I want to preface this by saying they had put an orangutan to the they chained him to the radiator in my dressing room. Because the other orangutan and the two orangutans were fighting with each other and screaming. So Ed said, yeah, they were on the show. And Ed said, oh, you separate those damn orangutans. I'm tired of their noise. Put one up into Steve Rossi's dressing room. This is before I got there. I put the other one down in the basement. So now I walk in there and I see the orangutan and I'm saying, what the hell is happening here? And then he knocks out Streisand. So he says, you did a great show, Barbara. Then he knocked out Goulet's dressing room door. He said, and Bobby, you were terrific. Well, thank you very much, Ed. Then he knocked on my dressing room door. And he said, you did the greatest show you've ever done. And I said, thank you, Ed. He said, I'm not talking to you. And on one of the early Ed Sullivan shows that we did in the 60s, I remember I asked, Marty was a little bit nervous, so he couldn't remember all the lines. So finally, he just blanked out and he couldn't remember anything. And I said, well, how do you feel about foreign affairs? And he's supposed to say, I never had one. So I said, Marty, how do you feel about foreign affairs? And he just looked at me blank. I said, well, how do you feel about foreign affairs? He said, hello there. And that became our catchphrase. Hello there.
That's a
Through
good
all the
story.
years we were together. That was a true story.
When entertainers get together and they reminisce and they tell stories and give advice, one topic always comes up. It's the hell stories, the hell gigs, the shows that were completely went awry. And those are some of my favorite stories.
I did a thing on Sullivan. I'm reminiscing now. And we were going to do a routine called the Zulu routine, where Marty came out as an African Zulu dancer. So I tell Ed before the show, because we weren't doing dress rehearsals then, well, what are you going to do on our show tonight? I said, well, we're going to do our Zulu routine. Well, you can't do any Zulu routine on my show. I said, well, why not? Because we have 100 dancing Zulus from the World's Fair doing the closing dance number. I said, you got to be kidding me. No, damn it, they're down in the basement. Go take a look. And I go down there, and there's 100 Zulus, and they're dancing and, making all kinds of sounds. And so I go upstairs to the dressing room, and I tell Marty, we can't do the Zulu. He's in the Zulu outfit already. He's got a bone through his nose. He had his hair, the wild hair he has anyhow. And he's holding a spear. I said, we can't do it. He said, well, why not? I said, because there's 100 Zulus doing the closing dance number. And Ed Sullivan said not to do it. He said, well, what are we going to do? I said, first, I don't even believe. He goes down there, and he's wearing the outfit. And as he's going down the steps, they look up and they say, Dad. So he comes back up. He said, well, we can't do the show. I said, no, just do it as a different character. There's no reference to Zulus in it. So I said, just play it as a Japanese manager of the World's Fair. Just do it with a Japanese accent. He bought a cap and he put the rising sun on it. And we did the routine, and it was not funny at all. I mean, we really bombed that night because he was nervous doing a different character.
Timing was off.
So, yeah, the next week I get a call from Ed. Oh, I need you guys to do my show tonight. Alan King canceled. So I said, well, we can't do it because we were just on last week. We have nothing to do. He said, well, why don't you do the Zulu routine? Well, in those days, we were pretty hot. We were making a lot of money. I figured he'll never know because it's a different routine and we'll change the order of the jokes. So we do the show, and we get huge laughs. As we're leaving, I said to Marty, we better get out of here. He's got to know it was the same bit. And I hear, Steve, can I see you up in the dressing room? So I go up there. I said, Ed, how'd you like the routine? Well, that was the funniest routine you guys ever did on my show. It was a lot funnier than that piece of crap you did last week. True story. Thank you.
Well, I was doing Before the Parade Passes By one night in Hello, Dolly. The whole company's doing it, and we were all singing it, and I'm very nearsighted, and when you change theaters, the distance from the actor to the footlights to the end of the stage is different in every theater, and I can't see a blessed thing on stage. I was constantly falling off the stage, and nobody much cared because I got it so often. But I fell on the drums all the time, and he was a great drummer, and he did not like that because it interrupted his drumming. And it was, so he hated that. So I finally realized, well, the next time, and if this ever happens, I'll just, so as I walk forward to do it, stay away from the drummer. So I stayed away from him, gave myself a twist, and I landed in the string section, which wasn't the part of Wisdom because they were playing the violins up on and it took weeks to heal, months to heal, absolutely months to heal. Well, anyway, so then I got up the aisle and out, and I couldn't get back on, and they went right on singing, troopers that they were, and I went to the stage doorman and said, may I? He said, who is it? And I knocked on the door, and he said, who is it? And I said, Carol Channing. He said, oh, no, she's on stage, right? I couldn't reason with him, so I went back around up the stage alley, and they're still singing. So I came down that aisle there, and Charlie Carroll was in the chorus. You don't know him, but anyway, so he's in the chorus. So he did it. Well, I keep doing things for you two, but so he said he signaled for everybody. Latch on to the one in front of you. You know, good one. Hold it, and I'm there. I was right there, and Charlie pulled me up like a wet herring and dragged me across the stage, and I got there just in time for Passers By. And I thought it was the most phenomenal thing that had ever happened in a theater. And you know, they just went.
Well, Rich, Steve, and Carol, the people here have some questions for you. So we went through the Q&A, and we tried to find some questions that hadn't been asked, and we've selected a handful. We're going to ask you to come up to the microphone. There'll be an usher there that'll help you.
My name is Gary, and I just can't tell you what a thrill it is to be here with all of you today. It's just great. Actually, I had a question for Little Rich that you've actually spoken a little bit about already, but if you could speak a little bit more about some of the maybe the more negative reactions you've gotten from those you've impersonated over the years, from them themselves. Just curious what it was like.
Well,
1 second. What were some of the negative reactions like that Rich has gotten over the years from his impressions from the person who's impersonating?
Thank you.
I speak Channing.
sincerely.
You did that well.
No, when I first came to Hollywood from Canada, and as I said earlier, I was in awe of so many actors and people I'd seen on the screen as a kid. And I remember I came for the Garland show, and I started living in Los Angeles, and I decided to open a bank account. So I went to a bank to open an account, and it was Friday evening or late afternoon, and the bank was full of people, and I'm standing there in this long line, and I'm looking around. I look up the front of the line, and guess what? It's Cary Grant. And I went, holy mackerel, Cary Grant, yes! So instead of saying, Mr. Grant, how are you? I run up in front of the line like an idiot, not even anything in my mind what I'm going to say. And in front of everybody in the bank, and he's just standing there, and I go like this. Good heavens! Aren't you Cary Grant, the star of Gunga Din? North by Northwest, an affair to remember. And he looked at me and he said, no, apparently you are.
Now, I want to point out that I've heard a story about a 16-year-old Kevin Pollak coming to one of your shows, Rich Little, and dressing like Peter Falk, which sounds like a kind of reversal. Is that a true story?
Yes, he told me that story.
He told you that story?
I did. We were on Hollywood Boulevard, and he came up to me, and it was such a great story. I mean, so complimentary and everything, and I'd forgotten about that entirely. And I can't remember exactly how it goes. Do you remember?
He played Columbo
That's right.
during your show to you.
That's right. I was doing it in the round, and he came up and did a Columbo bit, and I didn't know who it was, and he did a whole routine and was quite funny. And I said, boy, this guy's got talent, and he sure did.
Yeah.
Wow, great talent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a true story.
True story. Okay, next question, please.
Carol, I wanted to ask you if you have any memories of the movie Skidoo.
Oh, do you like that movie?
In a perverted way, yes.
Well, I hear it ran for 10 years in Greenwich Village in New York. I can't believe it. I never saw it. No, you know what? I think it was about drugs at the time.
I gathered that, yes.
Yeah, and I think Otto felt that he owed it to his artistic abilities to try some. I think he thought that. I think that was it. I mean, it's the dumbest movie I ever. I mean, Jackie Gleason. I got to be his wife. I like that. Yeah. And I was in bed with him in one scene.
How sweet it is!
Thank you. Next question, please.
I have a question for Steve Rossi. I understand that you have or had a close relationship with Howard Stern. So I wanted to know, how did you meet him and what can you tell us about him?
At the time, I was working alone in Washington, D.C. at the Shoreham Hotel. Marty's wife had passed away at that time. And I was listening to this radio show, and it was the Howard Stern radio show in Washington, D.C. And I thought he was very entertaining, but I thought he was a little bit controversial. So he came to see my show like a week later, and I was there for about 5 weeks. And he said that he was a fan. He wondered if I would come on the show. So I went on the show 2 or 3 times. And then he got fired, as he did with 7 other radio stations. And then he called me in New York. I have my offices there in an apartment. And he said, would you be my manager? And I said, why would you want me to be your manager? And he said, because, you know, you're successful and you've managed Alan and Rossi all these years and Trini Lopez and some other people. So he said, I sure appreciate it, and I'm broke and I'm married and I don't know what to do. If I could get to New York, it would be fabulous. So he came to New York. He stayed with me in my apartment there with his wife, Allison. And I gave him money every day to, you know, have money to live on. And then I finally got him on NBC daytime radio. And he was quite successful, but he got fired again. But we had a 3-year contract, so he was on already 2 years. So he had a year that he was going to get paid because he was fired. And then I got him on Infinity Broadcasting, which was K-Rock. And I only got that because I told the owner of Infinity that if Howard was on early morning from 6 to 10, he would get a tremendous audience. And he said, I'm not interested. He gets fired everywhere. And I said, I'm telling you, he'd be phenomenal. So he says, I'm not interested. Next day, he happened to call me in the morning. He said, well, let's just talk about it. So I went to meet with him. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you hire Howard Stern, I'll put him on the show with you for 3 months for free. But if your ratings go up accordingly, and then I had a scale of what he would get, starting at $200,000 a year. And I talked him into it. By the time Howard had done the show for 3 months, the station that he was on was 29 in the ratings, and he went to number 2, which meant he started out at $600,000 a year. And from then on, I managed him for 5 years until Marty and I got back together again, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Well, all 3 of you are celebrities. All 3 of you are loved by everybody here in the audience. It's perfectly clear to see why these are all celebrities. They're all professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Rossi, Rich Little, and Carol Channing.